Hello, everyone. My name is Patricia Meredith, and I am the author of Butcher Baker Candlestick Taker, Book 1 of the Spokane Clock Tower Mysteries, which has just released this week in ebook, print, and audiobook. I'd like to take a minute to read to you, share with you one of my favorite passages. It is particularly close to my heart because it takes place in a park that actually still exists that you can visit today in Spokane. Today the park is known as Manitou Park, but in 1901 it hadn't been named that yet. It was still known as Montrose Park. So over the course of the book, locals might be like, wait a minute, that sounds like Manitou. It is. It was just known by a different name at that time. And so in order to remain completely historically accurate, it is referred to as Montrose Park. So let's take a tour. Roughly 2 miles later, Marian began to slow down as she realized she'd come to Montrose Park and felt that this was where she'd meant to come all along. Here was an island of quiet amidst the roar of a city with growing pains. Mirror Lake still sparkled with small, laughing ripples that mirrored the deep April blue sky, sweeping meandering ducks from one end to the next. 3 yellow ducklings followed their mama in a V shape, the proud papa in the lead. Wild flowers edged curves in the lane, in yellows and purples and pinks, and the fruit trees and hawthorns were just starting to bud in premature anticipation of warmer weather. Adventurous couples, bundled in cloaks and overcoats, found warmth in the brisk morning air by walking swiftly along the paths. The sun was just bright enough overhead to give hope that spring had begun, though her Nain would say, "It is not spring until you can plant your foot upon 12 daisies." The small path that wound around hills and through spring foliage guided her gently to where the wild roses made their home, giving the park its name. She took a deep breath as though the flowers were in bloom, though she knew it would be another month or 2 before they would appear. Wild roses, her grandmother's favorite. Beautiful in bloom, but sharp enough to protect themselves. The stillness, the solitude. It met her heart in just the right place. She found an available bench where she could sit quietly and take it all in, for about 5 minutes before someone interrupted her calm by stomping through the underbrush behind her. She stood and peered through the trees, reaching for her chatelaine purse, whilst attempting to determine whether she needed to make a ladylike escape. Then she saw it was only some overweight man with a satchel slung over one shoulder. In the palm of his right hand was a small box with a grooved brass horn, and with his left he was turning a miniature crank on the side. His hat was an older-styled black Homburg that wasn't fitted to his head properly, because it squashed his ears down slightly on either side. Either that, or his ears were just of the size and type that did not work well with a Homburg. He wore thick glasses that made his brown eyes appear somewhat frog-like, and had a thin bit of fur growing above his upper lip that looked like a caterpillar trying to escape out of his nose. Altogether, a very unworrying man. "Ahem," she cleared her throat, raising her hand in a small wave. The man looked up at her sharply. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to disturb anyone. I'll just find another bit of woods, then." "Whatever are you doing?" Marian asked curiously, taking a small step forward. The man stopped where he was and looked to his left, then his right, then back at Marian, as though trying to think of a good answer. "Just out for a stroll?" Marian heard the question at the end of the statement. She brushed a stray curl behind her ear. "I'm afraid, sir, you'll have to do better than that. No one goes strolling through the woods with a strange weapon in their hands." "Oh, no, I promise you it isn't a weapon," the man said quickly, pointing the funnel-shaped horn toward Marian. She leapt hastily out of the line of fire. "I promise!" He quickly pointed the horn toward the ground. "Would you like to see it?" Marian looked about to see if there were any witnesses. No one, and she hadn't seen anyone nearby as she made her way through the park. But then she considered the heavy-set man and figured, perhaps impolitely, that she could always outrun him. Besides, she really had nothing to lose, and she was extremely curious about what he was doing. As her name would say, there is nothing lost by civility. She met the kind brown eyes behind the glasses. "Is it a recording device?" she asked, by way of an answer. His wide-eyed gape of surprise told her she was right before he nodded. "Well, knock me over with a feather. Yes, actually." The man started crunching out to her. Marian ignored the malapropism and continued in her curiosity. "It looks like a graphophone or phonograph, but I've never seen one so small." "You sure haven't. I hadn't either till I made one myself." The man beamed proudly. The manufacturers of the original graphophone are located in Bridgeport, Connecticut, just south of my home in Thomaston. It was surprisingly simple to take a larger one apart and figure out how to make it smaller for personal use. Simple? I doubt that. Otherwise, the company itself would have made some themselves by now. The man's cheeks reddened and his shoulders straightened. What were you recording? Your stomping through the brush was too loud for you to be attempting to capture birdsong. Actually, the stomping is what I was recording. I've been collecting different resonance frequencies to determine a solid vibration pattern that will work for an idea I've got. I see. Well, actually, for all intensive purposes, you hear, the man said, blushing and smiling in a manner that indicated he was trying to be humorous. Did you know every person's footsteps are unique, given the different shoes they wear, the size of their feet, and the weight upon those feet? That makes some sense, I suppose. She lifted her skirt slightly and contemplated her own boots. The salesman had sold them to her as being made from some new material. All she knew was he'd told her they would make her steps quiet, something she preferred over the incessant tap, tap, tap of heels. Ah, the new gutta percha boots, the man said, following her gaze. I've heard of those. Such an interesting material. It's a gummy substance that can be heated and then hardened into a tough latex rubber. It's used in many ways. Morning jewelry, canes, walking sticks, shoes. He pointed. Marian laughed. Well, I didn't know about all that, but they've certainly proven their $5 worth. They've been so comfortable I haven't even considered my feet until this moment. She clicked them together now and only heard a soft squeak in return. Inducibly, Marian smiled. Spokane still had its characters. Archie smiled in return. Spokane had such characters. Where else would he find two women who were actually interested in science? Things seemed to be shaping up very well for him in Spokane. I'm Archibald Prescott, he said, sweeping off his best hat. Marian Kenyon. She gave a small curtsy, tucking a stray curl behind her ear as she rose. The dark green of her coat made the green of her eyes feel all the more intense as she regarded him. So, what do you do when you're not frightening young ladies by stomping through the underbrush? I'm a clockmaker. I was sent here by the Seth Thomas Company in Connecticut to design a tower clock for the new Great Northern Railroad depot. That's quite a mouthful, Miss Kenyon said, her smile carried into her eyes. How long will you be in town, then? I just arrived a couple days ago, actually, and plan to stay through the summer, at least, to ensure my design ideas will work with the tower they've planned. I hope to create a new sound for the chimes. Don't all clocks sound alike? They all go bong, as far as I know. Archie gave a small laugh. Not my clocks. Excuse me? Your clocks don't go bong? Do they tick-tock? Whatever is the world coming to if our clocks stop ticking and talking? He chuckled. My clocks will still tick and talk, if that's any help. As that's a mechanical noise, I'm not sure how to do more than dampen it. But the chimes themselves, well, listen to this. He tucked the small graphophone back into his satchel and pulled out his pocket watch and held it out to her. She stepped toward him and reached out, but then pulled her hand back, as though half expecting it to shock her. It won't bite. She arched an eyebrow before taking the watch carefully in her hands. It's heavier than most watches, she said, turning it over in her hand and taking in the simple embossment around the edges. It was 14-karat gold, but he knew that wasn't what made it feel heavy. Instead, he'd managed to fit 12 unique chimes on one rotating wheel. Open it, he encouraged. She popped open the cover, and the soft, tinkling sound of wind chimes emerged. 1 o'clock, he said. She looked up at him, the watch face hidden behind her fingers. How did you know? Each hour's chime is a different sound, so I can know what time it is without looking at my pocket watch, and without the monotonous bongs. Her mouth actually swung open. What a great reaction. He hoped he could surprise her more. That's what I hope to do with the clock tower as well. I want to record different songs and a variety of sounds for each hour, and at each quarter hour it should play a quarter of the song. If every hour a different song rings out, no matter where you are in Spokane, when you hear the bells, you'll know what time it is before the bongs, if they're even still necessary. Her eyes widened. The green in them darkened when she was surprised. That is incredible. Yes, he definitely wanted to show her more. And I hope you want to find out more in Butcher Baker Candlestick Taker, Book 1 of the Spokane Clock Tower Mysteries. I'm so excited to announce that it is out there now in the world in print, ebook, and audiobook. So go get yourself a copy today. Thanks so much.